Now it's time for Inspirational Women, and my guest, Amy Cullen, author of Running Free and the Director of Equestrian Operations for the Sea Lazy U Ranch in Granby, Colorado. If it were fiction, this would be a fascinating story. But it's all the more fascinating for being Amy's life with a special lens on a horrific fire in October 2020. Amy Cullen, good morning, and thank you so greatly for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
I am really so grateful to have this opportunity because this story, a true story, but you've fictionalized it to a degree. It's what you lived. And honestly, just, within recent history, because this happened in 2020 and here we are, just 2024. So a 4-year anniversary of a really horrific fire that happened in Colorado and the book you've written, Running Free. So thank you for wanting to really capture the essence of the story and to share it with us.
You're welcome. I felt the strong need to get it all in writing after we went through all the events, so I'm happy it's being received so well.
And I can understand why. It is truly an engaging and at times such a gripping read. And really, so Running Free is the book, and then the rest of the title, an incredible story of love, survival, and how 200 horses trapped in a wildfire helped one woman find her soul. Well, my gosh, this is like a whole lifetime that's captured in, these several lines of words. But it's actually what happened. And I think that how it really changed your life is so much a part of the importance of the story.
Yeah, it definitely parallels my life. Being from the East Coast, being an attorney and walking away from my career to work on a dude ranch and then having to be a part of this major fire, I just felt the need to tell the story because it truly happened.
And in that, I feel, so that part of the story, walking away from a corporate law firm, this big job, you've studied for this, there's that expectation. I think walking away from it is just such a huge awareness for any of us who maybe kind of grapple with, am I doing what I should be doing? And do I really love this? Do I have a passion? This story really shows that sort of tug of war you have, but how you really find what's most important to you.
Yeah, exactly. To back up a little bit, I passed the bar in 2004. I think the first time I came to the ranch on vacation was 2006. And that's all that it had started out. It was a vacation. And I loved it so much. At the time, I was barred in D.C. and Maryland. And I found out that Maryland had reciprocity with Colorado. So when I wanted to waive into the bar, I figured I would take a 6-month sabbatical, a little bit of a break, and play cowgirl. It's been almost 13 years later, and I'm still working at the same ranch, and I never went back. So, yeah, I was definitely called a different direction.
And yet there were the seeds of that, right, from a very young age in your life. So it's not like it just came out of the blue.
Yeah.
As I read this, I couldn't help but think of that movie, The Horse Whisperer, because you seem to have that kind of connection with horses.
Yeah, I grew up riding horses. Being from the East Coast, I grew up riding hunter jumpers. I was pretty competitive for a long time in my life. As long as I can remember, I was riding or doing something with horses. But being out west and seeing it done a different way was something which really kind of drew me to the ranch and want to be a part of that to start. Like I said, I'd only really ridden English. I was very refined, riding in an arena, competing on the weekends. And I came out west and saw 200-plus horses living together and running to different pastures on the ranch, and I just felt like I needed to be a part of it. I was very much pulled towards it.
So it really was that feeling of something within you, we'll call it your soul, said, oh, yes, this is what I've been yearning for, seeking.
Yeah, exactly. And, I'm from kind of city world. I grew up outside Philadelphia. I went to law school in Washington, D.C. So to kind of turn in my pencil skirts and high heels for the cowboy boots and the jeans was definitely out of my comfort zone. but honestly, it was the most natural I think I'd ever felt. So I just kind of kept following this path that even though it was not what I'd studied for or planned to do, I think because I was so happy and so passionate about the work that I was doing, I found success through it that way.
Sure. Do you ever miss those heels and those suits and the pencil skirts?
I don't miss that. I do miss the food back east, that's for sure.
Oh, so well, you can fulfill that, right? You take a trip back east,
Yeah.
and yes, periodically, or take some culinary classes or something like that. But
Yeah.
here is where home is now, in
Mhm.
Colorado, out in the big wide country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I work at the Sea Lazy Ranch, and we are in Granby, Colorado. I don't know how familiar you are with Colorado, but we're about 2 hours outside of west of Denver and not very far from the Winter Park Ski Resort.
And so it is a lot of wide open range. But a
Hmm.
big part of this, because we mentioned earlier about this big fire that happened, there's just this huge community of people scattered around, but there's, as evidenced in Running Free, there's a real deep bond of community among the people.
Absolutely. And you just nailed why I wanted to write the book. We actually had to evacuate the horses twice because of the fire. And the first evacuation from the ranch, we went to a local neighbor's pasture about 10 miles down the road. And the community around us with ranchers came to help us. And then we had to evacuate the horses a second time because our evacuation pasture went under evacuation, excuse me, and we had to take the horses over Berthoud Pass to Evergreen, Colorado. And because the county then was obviously burning, we needed to rely on people from all over the state of Colorado to come help us. And we had people drive 5+ hours with trailers to come help get our horses to safety. And witnessing that and being part of it, it was just an unbelievable, human experience for me that I felt the need to just make sure it never got lost and that we were able to tell the story of the community coming together the way they did to help us.
It's so incredible, even as having read the book and experienced it that way, but you're mentioning it this way. I just could feel the chills coming up my body again because of just how that was happening, within really split second kinds of things, making decisions. You didn't know where the fire was. Was it going to come forward? And even without the fire being that close, the smoke, how
Hmm.
horrible that was both for humans and for these animals.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the first pre-evacuation and when we evacuated the horses, the smoke was so thick and there was ash falling in the sky from the wind, but not until about a week later when we evacuated the second time did I see flames. And once the flames and the fire was close, there were moments where you were so afraid if the wind shifted one more time, we were going to have to cut the fence and let the horses run and hope for the best. That unfortunately did not happen, but there were moments during that second evacuation where I was terrified that it was going to, because you could see the flames coming over the ridge where we were.
Oh, it's just gut wrenching and then incomprehensible that this huge fire is advancing and 200 horses. I mean, one thinks of evacuating oneself and maybe a couple of dogs or cats in your home, but 200 horses, it feels overwhelming.
Yeah, we have over 200 horses. I always say we have, but yeah, it was a lot of horses to move, and obviously we don't have trailers to move 200 horses, so we
Right.
had to rely on networking, social media, and the kindness of people to hook up their trucks and trailers and drive into danger to help rescue a bunch of dude ranch horses that they didn't know. And people came out in masses, and we actually had to turn away some trailers at the end of the night because we didn't have any more horses to load. And I don't know if you remember from the book during the second evacuation when they were cresting Berthoud Pass, getting on 70 and heading to Evergreen. They actually changed weather when the climate changed, and there was an ice storm on the other side of the pass. So the horses left fire country and then went into freezing ice. And we had trailers that had jackknife on the road and were slipping and sliding all over the place. So it was no easy feat, that's for sure.
No. And the fact that really everyone survived, and it wasn't just survival, but really caring, genuine care for these horses, that they were kept kind of within the grouping, their friends. That was a real insight to me, to see the kind of bonds between different horses, the respect and the awareness of that. It was huge.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a lot of what I've learned just being out here for as long as I have. With a herd of 200 plus horses, within that herd, it's very cliquey. I like to describe it as very similar to high school. You have like your popular group, your band geeks, and whatever it is, like there's all different cliques within this herd. And horses in general, they're prey animals, and they're always looking for a leader among either another horse or a human. So understanding that about horses made how we loaded them and chose to load them onto the trailer a little bit more simplistic. It was obviously chaotic, so trying to figure out how to control the chaos as best we could, that was the decision that we made. And it was the right decision, because out of that many horses, and some that had never left the property or had left the property in 25 plus years, and we only had about less than half a dozen horses that gave us a hard time. And that was pretty remarkable to kind of see that as a horse person, because trailering can be scary. And like I said, we had all different types and sizes of trailers showing up. Some were pitch black, some were cattle trailers. Like, it didn't matter. We were just loading them to get them out. Mm-hmm. And they were all willing to follow either their friends, another horses, or the human that was loading them. So I was pretty proud of all of them because of that.
And in this whole mix, you're still very new to this role that you have as the director at the ranch. Or were you even called the director at that time? But you were the lead person.
Yeah, I was the director at that point. Okay. My predecessor at the ranch, I believe he retired, 2019 maybe, 18. And I had obviously worked with him since I started in 2012. So, but he had retired. He was the quintessential cowboy that kind of knew what to do in every situation. And that's the irony that I found in wanting to draw the main character in the story, Emmy, based on my life. But it was just slightly ironic that myself, this East Coast attorney, horse hunter jumper English girl, was now kind of in charge of this giant operation. And within a year, this had happened. And, calling him, and I mentioned this in the story a bit, he was very honest and said that this had never happened in the many, many years he had worked at the ranch, and he wasn't even sure what to do. So we all had to kind of figure it out in the moment.
Fiction you couldn't just script it to be more intense than this real life situation unfolding around you, and having to make these second by second decisions, basically, right? Yeah.
And that's the other reason I wanted to write the book. There were several moments when there were things happening with the fire, with the evacuation, with the irony of my life, where I was like, this is like an outer body experience. I'm in some Hollywood movie right now. And it just felt like a story in my mind that I did not want to get lost. And I work really hard. I work at a ranch. I average 60 to 70 hour work weeks, but I felt the need to just really get this down on paper, because I didn't want it to get lost, because I didn't know what to do in a natural disaster like this. And even if it helps somebody 10 years down the road that reads it and keeps this in the back of their mind, like I said, the network of people was really what saved us. And I wouldn't have known that going into it.
That was so incredible, that outpouring. And thank goodness that we have the digital connections, the social media we have in circumstances like this, where people do connect. And then it's like not even questioning, we got to be there. We need to just reach out and help our neighbor.
Yeah, and the relationship that I'm sure many of us have with social media, the love-hate relationship, like I look at it as if this fire had happened 20 years ago, would we have fared as well? Because social media is what, we picked up the phone obviously, but so getting all these blasts out on social media and having people share, and that is really what brought the trailers to help us. And I laugh because, I have a lot of young 20-year-old girls that work for me that are either in college or out of college. And I'm always like, you guys are so silly on your phones with social media. And it really saved our butt. It really did.
Yeah, so you're right. This love-hate relationship, there's certainly, in these kinds of situations, definitely it's invaluable to make that
Yeah.
connection. Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Oh, it's so incredible. And as you talk about these young girls with their phones, how they rally together. I know that this really is based on this true story, and maybe there's a little bending of some of the circumstances or personalities to blend into the story. But I think it just reads so authentically that I think you probably capture the personalities really well.
Yeah, I tried. I mean, a lot of the characters are, like if the main character was just based on my life, it's not quite as exciting as I've made it out to be in the book. But, I'm just embellishing the characters to make it a better read. But I do have a lot of young women that work for me. And one of the other reasons I felt compelled to write the book is when I was in my 20s, I was a little bit narrow-minded. I came from this like high-end horse show world. I was an attorney. Like I just felt like that was the path I was on and that was all I knew, even though I wasn't happy. And it would have never occurred to me to think outside the box that you could have a career doing something else that maybe you don't even imagine is possible when you're in your 20s. And I find myself guiding and helping a lot of young women try to, I'm not sure I want to do this, even though I got my degree in this, and now I don't really like my first job. And I felt like the need to put that in writing, like you don't have to be stuck to something just because have student loans and you have debt. Like it means that there's probably more opportunities out there. And that was one of the connections I do have with these young girls that work for me that I really felt was also another empowering message within the book.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, it's another powerful theme and really needs that recognition, to trust. This exemplifies. You can trust making a huge career change and seeing how fulfilling it is. Like, as it says in the title, helped one woman find her soul. I mean, you probably can't, or I shouldn't put words in your mouth, Amy, but, to compare where you are today, that had you perhaps stayed on that law track, what kind of life, what kind of fulfillment would you be feeling?
Yeah, I don't know. All I know is that the second because like I said, it was supposed to be a 6-month sabbatical, and the second that I went from making my 6-figure DC lawyer salary to, I think I made $9 or $10 an hour that first summer.
Sobering.
I loved the work so much that it was never about that.
Yeah.
It was just about feeling really happy at the end of every day and then looking forward to going to work at the beginning of every day. And, we spend so much of our lives working, and if we're not happy, it just there's a lot of lost time.
Mm-hmm.
So I started looking at things a little bit different, and that made my transition easy. No, I definitely had moments where I was like second guessing myself and like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? But I just kept having faith, and it just kept working out. And I still, to this day, I absolutely love what I get to do for a living, and I feel very blessed.
And so here in the midst of frigid temperatures in December,
Yeah.
And having to go out into the cold because that is where the animals are, even then it's like, I know I'll get back into the warmth one of these moments, right?
Yeah, you just put on your coveralls and your big clunky snow boots and lots of They make heated gloves now, which is awesome. But yeah, I mean, you don't mind. I don't mind the work. Like even if I'm freezing, you still feel really satisfied at the end of every day. And that to me is what I keep coming back to because that's important. And even when I was an attorney, I worked really hard. I got good grades. I did well in school, well in my law firm. But I just felt like, I can't explain it. Like, I just felt like I had to work really hard to be average at something. And out here, I work really hard, and I just feel like I'm good at what I do, which is really gratifying. And I never felt quite like that back when I was practicing.
And that really is then the answer. Then the right choice was made to really stay with this and stay on this pathway.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh. Well, and really, I just think that is so important for so many. It's always been the case in our lives, but well, with social media, there's just so much portrayal of what a life should look like. And it isn't always authentic what is portrayed. I think many pictures are staged, etc. So to counteract kind of that glitz and glamour with this feeling, this authenticity that comes with pursuing what really brings you fulfillment and joy, it is an important story to share.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you nailed it. I mean, just when you feel that like authenticity of what you're doing and you feel rewarded by it, I mean, you can't really describe that. And that feeling is what I think a lot of us are sometimes afraid to follow because it might not be as clear as the path where with money and where your degree sets you and the easy corporate job in the city. But there's other things out there. And I think realizing that was important for me to kind of start the journey. And like I said, I didn't know this even existed when I was choosing my career in my early 20s.
And isn't that something? Yes, it's you kind of take one step in front of the other, unaware of that. So was it, as in the story, was it a good friend of yours, a longtime friend, who said, let's go take this vacation? Is that how it happened?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that actually happened. Like, obviously, our vacation was changed up a little bit in the story, but my best friend growing up, who I showed horses with, was fortunate enough to come to the ranch as a kid. Her family came to the Sea Lazy Ranch in the summer. She was part of the children's program that we have here. And when we were in our mid-20s, I'd say, she invited me to come to the ranch with her. And we came and had the most amazing vacation. And ironically, I didn't really want to go because we owned horses, we showed horses. And I was like, why are we going on a horse vacation? Like, let's go to the beach. And she's pretty much like, shut up. You were my one friend that I know will love this more than anyone. And she was right. And we came and we just had the greatest vacation. And we ended up booking the same vacation at the Sea Lazy Ranch the same week every summer thereafter. And it was about 2010, 2011 that I started more or less joking around that I was going to leave my law firm to go play cowgirl for 6 months while I waved into the Colorado bar, which is what I did. I just never went back to practicing.
But, it's a story you tell yourself, which you believed, and any of us might, because it's like, okay, there's my safety harness there, if I need to, and it's there. I mean, if you need it, but then you realize, like, oh no, I could never do that because you're just so in love with what you're doing.
Yeah, and I kept my big toe in it, and I did, at one point was looking for law firm jobs in Denver, but I look back on it and I laugh because I would have not hired myself because you could tell I was not into it while I was trying to get jobs. So it worked out. It really did, but it was like I couldn't have planned it out. And I think that's an important part of just understanding and trusting the process and having a little faith that you've put yourself on a path that you're meant to put yourself on, even if it's not as easy or as black and white as what you thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Oh, All of that is just so critically important for all of us, regardless of where we are along our life's journey. It's never too late if we feel like an inkling that this is not where I should be. And we've had an experience of something deeply passionate, as you did with your experience at the ranch. And now you're experiencing this writing world. Now, and you've mentioned how you felt this was an important story to share. And we've really, I think, underscored how invaluable this story is. Do you see doing more writing, or what's your feeling about that?
I haven't really thought about it. This is the first book I've ever written. Obviously, I had help writing it. My first 80 pages after the fire, I wrote really fast after the fire, but it read like a legal brief. I had no background in writing creatively. So it took a while and a bit of a love-hate relationship with the whole process of trying to understand it and fictionalizing the characters and making it less about myself and a memoir made it an easier write for me. But I don't know if I have another book in the future or not. I have a lot of interest, or people keep saying it would make a really great movie or a screenplay.
That is true, I think.
I've never written that, but I think it might be fun to kind of pursue that and to see if developing characters even further and more storylines. Because working on a ranch, there's always storylines and there's always content. So we'll see. I'm not sure yet.
That's the point, is the kinds of stories that go on. I mean, there's really a lot of love with horses, and it might be even a different genre, like a young adult, because, well, like yourself, girls have this passion with horses and riding and such. So who knows, right?
Yeah, exactly. I just was like, you never know. But so we'll see.
But in the meantime, here you are continuing at Sea Lazy Ranch and being the director there. So it's been 4 years then? No, 6 years that you've had this role, and it's never a dull moment, I'm sure. I mean, aside from the fire.
Yeah, exactly. No, I started working at the Sea Lazy Ranch in 2012. I started out as your seasonal wrangler, like I said, making $9 or $10 an hour or whatever minimum wage was back then. And then I became an operations manager, and then I became the director of operations. So I got to learn all different parts of the ranch. And I was always involved with horses. I was always riding and training horses for the ranch. And then I took over the program in, I think, 2019. And it's a pretty massive program. We have well over 200 horses. It's a guest ranch, so we have trail rides that go out twice a day, every day. We have horses for all different level riders. So someone like myself who actually knows how to ride can come here on vacation and just have the most amazing time of their life riding really nice horses out cross country. I get to put any type of rider on horse as well. I've put some really elderly people up on horses that had never ridden and they wanted to ride. It's like their last wish. You name it, we do it here with horses. Clinics, cows. We ride in the snow in the winter, teach a lot of lessons, do a lot of horsemanship. I teach a lot of leadership with horses. It is just pretty much a horse paradise for people that love horses. And it's obviously a 5-star ranch with a spa and really nice accommodations and really wonderful food and every other outdoor activity you can imagine that takes place in Colorado.
Oh, it sounds like a dream. And it is a dream for many people, obviously.
Yeah. It's like, it got me, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like such an incredible place. And as I'd mentioned, the whole experience, your story of making your changes, and the story of saving these 200 horses from a just horrific wildfire back in 2020. It's an amazing book, Running Free. And when we do these conversations in December, it's such a great time because I think of this as the gifting month. And I really can't think of a better gift that really has so much invaluable content for anyone. So this definitely should be at the top of any gift-giving list.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, it comes from my heart. And really, for people to get more information, you do have a website for the book, right?
The website is runningfreehorses.com, and then I'm also selling it on Amazon. And it's Running Free, and my name's Amy Cullen, and my first name is spelled AMI. Nobody seems to remember that, so kind of point that out. It'll help find the book a little bit easier.
Exactly. I'm glad you mentioned that, Amy. Well, this has been just a gift for me to have this conversation with you and to be able to share this amazing story. So thank you so much for taking this time with us and sharing this work that you do.
Thank you so much for having me. I had fun. Thank you.
That brings us to the end of a very full hour of Inspirational Women with Amy Cullen and Sunday Morning Magazine with Luke Miner. I'm Kate Daniels, your host, and I greatly appreciate your sharing this hour with me and these special guests. For details you might have missed or information you'd like to know, please just send me an email, kated@warm1069.com, and I will get right back to you. Also, if you'd like to listen again or to share these important stories with your family and friends, find the podcast on our Warm 1069 webpage. Just click on the Listen tab, then Podcasts, then either of the show names, and then look for the guest names. I now wish you and your family a day of some good conversation about dreams and making them come alive. Have a week of the same, and then please plan to join me again next weekend for another hour of Sunday Morning Magazine and Inspirational Women on Warm 1069. Good morning.